Well. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. Welcome to the Isaiah LaFone Show. I am your host, Isaiah Presley LaFone. Thank you so much for watching tonight. We've got a great show for you all. Tonight, we're going to have on Zachary Martin. He runs a program called the Martin Memo. We're going to be talking about his life, how he got involved into politics, what he's doing over there at the Martin Memo. We're going to be talking about kind of sort of his ideology, similar to our interview with Taylor Sharp. And we're going to be talking about new footage of the incident regarding ICE and Alex Preddy has been released, and we're going to be going over that. So much more. My name is Isaiah LaFone, and you're watching the Isaiah LaFone Show. Mr. Zachary Martin, how are you today, sir?
Oh, well, any day that I get to talk to you and talk about politics is a very good day in my mind. And wow, the Isaiah LaFone Show, is there any place that I'd rather be? I don't think so.
Well, thank you, sir. I'm glad you're doing well. So people are kind of funneling in. We got 4 people watching right now, but they'll begin to funnel in soon. Unfortunately, y'all, on StreamYard, I cannot do the intro video to let y'all funnel in, so that's why we kind of have to start like this. But nevertheless, Zach, would you like to go and introduce yourself, talk about what you do, and because most of my audience probably isn't that familiar with you, just go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you again for allowing me to be on here today. It's always a pleasure. Yeah, my name is Zachary Martin. I'm 23 years old. I'm originally from Wisconsin. My parents decided they were sick of shoveling the snow, so they wanted to shovel the sand in Florida. We moved to Florida to start my high school years. From there, after my tenure ended at my high school, then I decided to become an electrician. I did that for 2 years. I really didn't like my boss after putting me in 120-degree attics all the time. Wasn't a fan of that. So I said, you know what? I want to be patriotic. And then that's when I decided to enlist in the United States Army. I've been in the Army now for about 4 years, and I love every second of it. And I also run my own podcast and political platform. So this is just a great way to network and outreach. And again, I'm very humbled and blessed to be here. So again, thank you.
Absolutely. 6 people watching right now, and guys, make sure to like and subscribe and share this live stream. It's going to be great. It's going to be a great show. Make sure to put your questions in the chat. Make sure to load up the chat with these questions, and we're going to be answering them later on. So, as I said, I just kind of want to get into kind of like your story, your background, how you decided to start the Martin Memo, kind of your ideology, what you think, and then we'll get into the stuff that's going on in Minnesota. So, first of all, how did you get involved in politics? You mentioned, you've been in the military, the Army. And so how'd you get involved in politics? What made you want to start the show? Just go into that.
Yeah, well, thanks for the question. I'd say originally it started in 2012. I remember watching a debate between Mitt Romney and Barack Obama. And obviously I grew up in a Christian conservative household, and a lot of my parents' ideas are instilled through me. But I remember watching that debate, and I was just like, man, I really don't like that Obama guy. Like, he just seems so fake. That was one of his debates where he got clobbered by Mitt Romney. I'm like, I really like this Mitt Romney guy. So fast forward a little bit later, I got a little more into my own sphere as far as political ideology and understanding politics and systems and balances and all the nuances that go behind it. And well, flash forward all the way through, I wanted to do a podcast in the wake of Charlie Kirk's shooting. I remember sitting on my bed that night, kind of watching the news come in, and when he officially was pronounced dead. And I just remember sitting there and having like a moment with God, where God talked to me and he said, listen, I think you can be the person to pick up that microphone and continue this fight. And while I might be small in numbers as of now, we have come a long way. I launched my podcast 8 days after the assassination. September, actually 9 days after the assassination on September 19th. And we've been going strong since. We have 4,500 subscribers roughly on YouTube, and we're building up our audience across. I just love politics, and yeah, I don't know how much more I can say on that. I just love our country most importantly, and that's part of the reason I also joined the Army. As much as it was to get away from my job, it was to also serve my country and take pride in something and set my future up for success.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you mentioned, your first foray kind of being the 2012 presidential debate between Barack Obama and Mitt Romney. So in the wake of Trump in 2016, were you full MAGA? How did your ideology kind of shift? Because ultimately you said you liked the Mitt Romney guy. I would assume now, we're moved a little further to the right of him. So how did your ideology kind of shift in wake of Trump and as, you continued to along your political journey?
Sure. So I remember the 2016 leading up to the entire election there. I was still in middle school. I was finishing up my 8th grade year. And I was talking with a lot of classmates. And at first, I was not really a Trump guy. I liked a lot of his messaging, but I'm like, man, this guy is just very not presidential. That's what the news and media instilled in me. So I was more of a Ted Cruz type of guy at the time, which is insane to say. Yeah, don't hold it against me. Scott Walker as well. He was the former governor of Wisconsin. He had a brief run where he was leading the pack, and he quickly faded away as soon as Trump really got into there. But yeah, I was just like, man, I really don't like this Donald Trump guy. I'm like, well, I'll support the Republican ticket regardless, but please don't let it be him at the time. And thank goodness it was him, because our nation needed someone like President Trump. So I guess the more and more I started studying politics and kind of understanding, again, all the nuances behind it, I said, wow, President Trump is actually on the right side of history. And I'm glad that I was not a full Ted Cruz supporter. And yeah, I think as the years have gone on, obviously there's been some good Trump, bad Trump moments, but overall, I really do love the MAGA movement and what it's become and how it's such a broad coalition. I don't think President Trump gets enough credit for that, is how he has reshaped the Republican Party and made it a very broad coalition.
Absolutely, absolutely. I do have this question because I can talk about my own political journey a little bit. Did you ever have a libertarian phase? Were you ever a libertarian for a time?
I'll say for a brief stint, I probably was. My mom, self-identifies as a libertarian, or at least she used to. So I was like, wow, that doesn't seem like a bad idea. And then I'm like, yeah, maybe not so much.
Yeah, another gay.
Yeah.
Yeah, in 2021. So my foray into politics, I remember the 2016 election. I was in 3rd grade. I was 8 years old. That's just showing your age. Welcome to the unction. But I was in 3rd grade during 2016, and now I know kids that weren't even alive, and I'm like, golly, dude, am I that old? But anyway, 2016, I was in 3rd grade, and I remember I had a classmate of mine. His name was Jake. I'm sure he'll see this at one point. He was the biggest Trump guy, the biggest Trump guy in 3rd grade, as much as an 8-year-old could be. None of us had any idea about anything about politics, but hey, his parents support Trump, so he did too. I remember my family being Ben Carson people. They wanted Ben Carson. I ultimately think Carson's a little too nice to be president of the United States. But nevertheless, I remember that time. But my getting into politics really happened about 2020 was when I really started caring. I started being involved in elected positions in my school. I kind of got a taste for politics. I kind of liked running a campaign and getting elected to things. It made me feel nice. But I got involved after Trump lost the 2020 election to Joe Biden. And in 2021, I had my libertarian phase. And then in 2022, 2023, really, I stopped caring about politics, more so studied theology. And then in 2024 is when I started getting back into politics again, because I realized how much of Christian theology informs the way that a Christian thinks about politics, and we'll get into that in a little bit. An important book for me was Lex Rex by Samuel Rutherford. Rutherford was a Presbyterian theologian, one of the Westminster Divines, and he wrote Lex Rex, which translates to "The law is king." It is a direct shot across the bow at King Charles I and the idea of the divine right of kings, the idea that one man holds all three reins of power simply because he was ordained to that position, quote unquote, by God, and therefore, of course, he gets to have it into eternity. And that, of course, was around the time of the English Civil War, and Charles I would end up being executed. But nevertheless, that was a big, important book for me. And getting into more, because the Presbyterians have done a really good job at producing great works of Christian political thought. Many of our great political leaders have been Presbyterian. Andrew Jackson was a Presbyterian, my man. Alexander Hamilton was a Presbyterian. Ronald Reagan was a Presbyterian. The list goes on and on. Presbyterians and Episcopalians run American politics. Okay, remember that. But nevertheless, that's sort of my political journey. And then after Charlie Kirk, I saw a void and form, not just of a young, well-learned, young conservative, but of a specifically Christian variety. Many people in the political space we see so often, they use the term Christian as sort of like an aesthetic. They don't really believe in it. It reminds me of the end of the twilight of the Roman Republic, when many of the politicians there just viewed their gods as sort of aesthetics, and they would sacrifice, for, to appear good to the people, but they were never really believers in that. So I want to get into kind of some of your political philosophy a little bit. I'm going to ask you some tough questions. Like I said before, you can't do, like I said, we were talking about in this, you can't do any worse than Taylor Sharp has done. So nevertheless, and I now I've said that publicly, but that's fine. So my first question to you is, what do you see as, obviously America is not in the state that, we would want her in and what she used to be. She's definitely not the country she used to be. What do you think are the major factors leading up to that decline in the United States of America?
Yeah, I mean, I attribute several different things that really have sped up to the decline of America. Obviously, this mass immigration, that's going to cause a lot of issues, as we see play out across the board. And I know we'll go into it as far as Minnesota and all the crap, I'll just say it, crap that's happening over there. But mass immigration has hindered our society so greatly, and we're seeing it get played out again and again and again. One of my favorite things that I love to hear liberals say is, well, statistically, immigrants, they cause less crime on a per capita basis. Well, first of all, let me just say the numbers are very much underreported. And then second of all, I don't care what crime's coming in. I don't care if they cause less crime. That is still crime that is coming into our country, that's raping our mothers and our daughters, and all these unspeakable acts that do occur. So I think a lot of it stems from mass immigration into the United States. Another big point is the decline in faith in our country, and that's probably the number one. Since the 1960s, we've pretty much been on a collision path towards the downtrend as far as Christianity within America, and that is something that needs to change. We need to have a Christ-based country again, and I'm not saying I'm a full Christian nationalist yet. I'm still doing my research on that, but I'd say that I am but I am trending more that way, because a country without God at the center is just doomed to fail. And I think we see that time and time again across civilization. The Roman Empire is a great example of that. So those would probably be my big two. Another one that stems off the same tree would probably be the indoctrination that is happening in our school systems. As much as everyone says that's such a small issue, or it's only happening in liberal cities and states, that's not true at all. There's new reports in Missouri about children being indoctrinated and having drag queen story hour. These are things that are poisoning our country, and something that we need to do. So those would be my big three that I'd contribute to the downfall of America. Just one quick last one, honorable mention, and that is the food that is coming into America as well. It is no secret that there are two different recipes, that one shipped to the rest of the world, the other one comes into America that's loaded with more crap, more additives, and all that junk that's within our food. In the US, we have 10,000 approved additives in our food supply. Compare that to Europe, which there's a lot of things wrong with Europe, but at least their food is somewhat decent. Only 300 to 400 additives in the food in Europe, and we have 10,000 here at home. Those things right there, they need to get corrected because our American citizens are being poisoned, and this is just another example.
Exactly. That's really good. So yeah, and then I would say about the issue of the lack of religiosity in the United States. Ultimately, we see the beginning of a reversal of that amongst our generation. For the first time in a long time, our generation is actually more religious than the generations which have come. And actually, there are more young men in church than there are young women. It's almost never been that way, but now it is in this day and age. And ultimately, you talked about it, 1960s. It ultimately started really in the 1950s. 1952, there was a Supreme Court decision which struck down blasphemy laws in the United States. And I see that as kind of the first big blow to the Christian society that we'd built in the United States of America. Because ultimately, if it's legal now to blaspheme the name of Jesus Christ, then you don't have a Christian society. And talking about my own Christian nationalist journey, I would call myself a Christian nationalist. I would consider myself a Christian nationalist. Just me saying that, I'm about to end up on Right Wing Watch on X now. But I really officially became a Christian nationalist. I became convinced of Christian nationalism after the death of Charlie Kirk, because I had originally held on to some of the last vestiges of belief that maybe we want a Christian nation, but we're not going to enforce this thing or that thing. And then I realized, no, we're going to have to enforce Christian morality to the T to truly have a Christian society. And ultimately, if the alternative to a Christian society is what we have now, I'll take the Christian society any day of the week. And I believe many atheists would. Even Richard Dawkins has talked about the fact that he calls himself now a cultural Christian. He wants Europe to remain a Christian nation, or Britain to remain a Christian nation, because he knows the alternative is an ever encroaching Islam. So that's very good. So I want to now talk about your own personal ideology on things. And so in terms of immigration, what immigration policy do you believe would best suit the United States? Are you in favor of a moratorium, a complete immigration moratorium? What are you in favor on? Kind of give me your thoughts on immigration policy.
Sure. First, before I do that, I do want to touch on one point. You said you became a Christian nationalist after the shooting and the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And I want to say and highlight a stark contrast to that, because after the death of Charlie Kirk, what we had seen was kind of two branches form. We had seen more of the Nick Fuentes alternative deep state right, and then we had seen a version similar to yours. And I would hop on your version every single day of the week. But we can talk about Nick Fuentes later. As far as mass immigration goes, well, first of all, we do need to deport, and I think we need to really deport all illegal citizens. That kind of goes without saying. One thing that I would be in favor of, and people have called me radical for this, but if you are an illegal immigrant, or just an immigrant coming into our country in the first place, I should say, you should not be allowed to live off any welfare. You should not be having any of that. I know 80% of households, and I think the number is just a little bit worse than that, of Somali immigrants in Minnesota are on some sort of welfare.
90%.
What was that?
90%.
90% now, exactly. The last number I'd seen was 83. So 90%. That just goes to show, when you're assimilating into the United States, it is not racist to say you should be contributing to our society. You should be giving back into our society in some sort of way. And some countries assimilate better than others. The UK, as much as I despise them and all their liberal craziness, they would assimilate better into the United States than a country like Somalia. So I would be in favor of you not receiving any welfare, or maybe say 10 years, you can't receive any welfare if you're coming into the United States. And I think that would also clear things up. I think we do need to do a better job as far as our immigration policies. I know that H-1B visas lately, they've kind of gone under some heats, and I won't dive into that necessarily now, but I would be in favor of a moratorium, as you said, for abortion, at least for the next 10 years until we get something under control and deport these 21 million illegal immigrants out of our country. So yeah, I'd say that's probably my ideology.
Yeah, and I would go. So I would, of course, be in favor of an immigration moratorium. I believe most people on the right are now. I think at AmFest they took a poll. For those who weren't at AmFest, they took a poll, and 90% of the attendees at AmFest said that they would be in favor of an immigration moratorium, and the other 10% are just gay. So ultimately, I think that's what's popular on the right. I don't know if Trump is going to give it to us at this point. I have my own concerns about Trump in the second term. I know you do as well. We've talked about him, and we're not going to sugarcoat anything because ultimately that's what. And I see a lot of conservative media doing that. That's not just Fox News, but a lot of conservative media is running cover for anything Trump does. But nevertheless, we'll get into that later. But I would be in favor of a complete immigration moratorium, and I believe that all 40 million illegal immigrants should be deported. And I believe many of the immigrants who are here legally, who are taking advantage of the American system, like the Somalians, like the Indians, like all Muslims, actually, they should all be deported, denaturalized, and deport all of these people. Islam, because all Muslims, because Islam is a national security threat to the United States. And the Indians, I mean, they talk about doctors and engineers are the best and brightest are coming over. The best and brightest are being sent to, of the Indians, supposedly, are being sent to Texas, where they're opening up gas stations, and they're being given taxpayer dollars for that. And so ultimately, I am in favor of the deportation of all these people, denaturalization and deportation, and a complete stoppage on all immigration. I believe I agree with Alexander Hamilton. Hamilton said that immigration would destroy the United States of America if it was allowed to become a massive issue where we were taking in a bunch of people, taking in too many people. He said, too much immigration will destroy the United States of America and will introduce foreign tendencies. And he's talking about third world tendencies there. He's talking about these, I think the type of people that Mr. Hamilton was thinking of when he's talking about this is the Somalian people. They're used to defrauding their own government. They're used to scamming in their own country. So they come here and they do the same thing, introducing foreign tendencies, introducing foreign cultures. This was a concern for Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Jay, and he was also a founding father, when he said actually that the sameness of the United States is what will hold her together. The cultural being culturally homogenous, being linguistically homogenous, being religiously homogenous. These things will hold the nation together. Ultimately, if you introduce a bunch of different little ethnic groups with different cultures into the United States, not allowing them to assimilate, and there's some people that just aren't going to be compatible with Western civilization, obviously. But if you introduce these groups of people, you're going to create little pockets of this group here, this group there, and ultimately, and a lot of them don't speak English. We can't talk to each other. We can't communicate. We don't share the same experiences. Most of these people are not even truly Americans, and so you just can't run a country that way. So, would you like to add anything on that?
Yeah, I would. And I think any person that waves a different flag than the American flag while in an elected official, they should be removed immediately. Look at Jacob Fry. Jacob Fry is the epitome of what I'm talking about. He is the Minneapolis mayor and he's waving a Somali flag. No, absolutely not. If it were up to me, he would probably be one of the first people out, and take Ilhan Omar out as well. And then as far as the pockets, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. You look at places like Dearborn, Michigan, which are just rampant with the Muslim community, and we're seeing what is happening. And then we had our first New York City mayor sworn in on a Quran. Like, this cannot continue. And yeah, I think, I don't know if I'm all the way out there about deporting every single Muslim, but the more and more I do my research, the more and more I say, well, that's maybe not the worst idea. Overall, there's some great people within the Muslim community. I'll say that. I have some very good friends here in the military, but the theology, the ideology behind the Islamic and Muslim religion is just atrocious and needs to go.
Absolutely. You talk about Jacob Fry. I've said this multiple times. If I were the president of the United States, I would definitely not be as restrained as Donald Trump. I would have already done Minneapolis how Lincoln did Baltimore. And in case anyone is not aware of how Lincoln did Baltimore, everybody's going to prison. Doesn't matter who they are. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry is going to prison. If I was president, Jacob Fry would be in prison. Tim Walz would be in prison. The lieutenant governor would be in prison. Everyone's going to prison. And I would have already invoked war powers. And I would have to create a national crisis. So that's how I would have handled Minneapolis. It would have already been a done issue. If George Washington was president, he would have already suited up and led the army over there like he did with the Whiskey Rebellion. George Washington suited up and led the U.S. Army over to Pennsylvania because some people rioted over a whiskey tax. Do you not think he would have done that? He would have done far worse to Minneapolis, but nevertheless, getting into the issue of abortion, I see the sign behind you. You were at the March for Life. First, how was that? Tell me about your experience at the March for Life. I was unfortunately unable to be there, but tell me about your experience.
Oh man, it was probably one of the best experiences I've had in my life, and it was just, there was so much hope and joy. And I know the liberal media loves to paint it as this is just an old white guy issue, but I would say 75% roughly were probably from the Generation Z or below, Generation Alpha. It was incredible, the wonderful people there. And one of my favorite lines, I talked to a couple university students who happen to be Catholics. That's a different issue. But I pointed over to a group of protesters that were forming, and there was probably about 100 of them, maybe at max, compared to the 20,000 of us. And I said, what would your message be to them? And you know what they said? They said something that I thought really stuck out. They said, I would pray for them. I would love them. I would love to talk to them and tell them why they're wrong, but have respectful dialogue. And that just speaks volumes to me, because if you go the other way, if I went and interviewed the group on the left side of things and I said, what would you tell them? Oh, they're racist, they're fascist, they're a dictator, whatever adjective they can throw at you. So overall, my experience was amazing. I had a media pass for the Martin memo. So we did a lot of interviews, talked to some amazing people. Kristen Hawkins, that was a pretty cool interview that I got thrown into within 10 seconds. But overall, it was such a humbling experience. And I strongly believe Generation Z will be the generation to abolish abortion.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I've advocated that as well. So that's your abortion stance, complete abolition.
Yeah, 100%. You know, I'll be honest. My journey, when I started this podcast a few months ago, I was pro-choice to a point. I was like, well, you know, at least compromise or whatever, maybe to the first trimester. That was kind of always my belief, as well as Donald Trump's three big ones: the rape, incest, or life of the mother. But as I did my research and as I understood abortion more, I'm like, no, this is complete. This is satanic. It really is. This is satanic. This needs to go. And I'll die on the front lines trying to defend the unborn and the people that never got a chance because of abortion. When you have statistics real quick of 73 million people that we are aware of got aborted last year in the entire US, or in the entire world, and 1.5 million here in the US, that just speaks volumes, and it's very unfortunate. And I hope that we can be the generation that fixes this.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I have advocated I used to also believe in the exceptions for, rape, incest. But at the end of the day, either we believe it's a life or we don't. At the end of the day, that child didn't ask to be born or be conceived in the manner of rape. And ultimately, the perpetrator is the real criminal here. The baby has done nothing wrong and is equally as deserving of life as anybody else. And I've talked to people that I know who, were conceived out of rape, and they've struggled with that. My mere existence comes out of this horrible thing, but ultimately I believe that God can bring something beautiful out of even the worst circumstances. So absolutely, I've long advocated for a constitutional amendment to abolish abortion. I believe that is what is absolutely necessary. Get the issue done with forever. And so yeah, that's wonderful. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad you moved on that issue. So moving over to the issue of homosexuality, which seems to be a big issue in the conservative movement. You have people on my side who are more of like, why are we compromising on this issue? My position on homosexuality, what's the funny thing with me is, and I was thinking about talking with a friend about this last night, my position on homosexuality wouldn't have been seen as extreme in 2008. Why? Because Barack Obama repeated a lot of the stuff that I'm saying, about homosexuality. Marriage is between one man and one woman. There's no such thing as gay marriage, this, that, and whatever. Whether he believed that or not is, it doesn't matter. I don't think Barack Obama believes anything. But whether he believed that or not doesn't matter. It's the fact that he had said it. And now today I get called an extremist for saying it. Just shows you how fast the cultural position can move so quickly. But in the conservative movement, I mentioned this to Mr. Sharp, and hopefully we're going to have a better back and forth on this than I had last week. As I said to Mr. Sharp, when I came to AmFest, a huge red flag for me was the booth setup, Gays Against Groomers. Now, I think it's wonderful to be against people grooming children, but gays, I do not believe that there is a place for people who are active homosexuals. Let me be very clear about that, because Mr. Sharp seemed to not understand last week. Active homosexuals. Moses was a murderer, but he was a repentant murderer. It's a very different thing than someone who is actively in unrepentant sin. So I don't believe that there's any place. I don't think there's such thing as a gay conservative. I don't think there's any place in a conservative movement for an active homosexual. So I want to hear your position on that. Hopefully we can go back and forth, and we'll have the better dialogue than last week.
Yeah, absolutely. So, oh man, just before I answer that question real quick, that was a very interesting conversation, and I don't think you got mogged. I think the other person got mogged. And if you show up wearing an all black suit with a black tie and everything, you deserve that. But anyways, I'm just going to go ahead and continue here with what my stance is on this. So I don't support homosexuality. I don't. I have friends who are. I repent. I don't repent. I pray for them. I try to talk to them. I try to give them to see the Christian side of things. And a lot do say that they are Christian, which is a little confusing. But I'm not to your position yet, and this is the reason why. I think that, you know, we can bless these people. We can pray for these people, and we can talk to these individuals about this issue right here. And I would say that I don't think they should be discluded from our party. I don't think that's the right answer. I think there's a lot of great gay people out there, and that sounds a little weird to say. But I believe, and I had an excellent interview with a guy when I first started, who wrote a book about being a gay conservative, essentially. And he said, that's between me and God. And, you know, I would probably echo that same thing. As much as I can talk to that person and try to convince them that what they're doing is a sin. It literally, in the King James version, it reads it as an abomination. But I think all we can do is pray for these individuals and hope they find God. And that's between those individuals. One thing I will say, though, in contrast to kind of what I just said, is as long as we don't play the identity politics, because identity politics is a great sin in America in itself. As long as we don't cater or change our opinions or say, hey, you know, we're going to support this, but we're not going to support drag queen show hour. I think we're okay as long as we don't cater or go down to their level. And if they want to buy into a platform that may hate them or dislike them, or they know that they are in the wrong, then I think that's kind of on their decision. I'm not going to say, hey, you can't join because you're gay. I don't think that sends the right message. But I know you and I are going to have some dialogue on this, so I'd love to hear your full take on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. So, gentlemen, this is how you disagree gracefully. Nobody's getting mad at each other. No one's making faces at each other. We're just sitting here and discussing this issue. Yeah. So ultimately, where my main issue lies is ultimately my theology informs my politics. I don't understand how someone can be a gay Christian unless you want to play the Greek game. But the Greek term that Paul uses is arsenokoita, which literally means man better, or men who bed men. There is literally no way to get around it. Also, Romans 1, even if you want to get around that word specifically, Romans 1, Paul's very clear. He talks about people who've been given over to dishonorable passions, men, you know, trading in their passions for women, for passions with one another, and women likewise. So ultimately, my answer on this question lies in the eternal decree of God, which is that homosexuality is an abomination and is contrary to human nature and is unacceptable in polite society. There's a reason that it's almost universally been looked down on by almost every culture in civilizational history. The Greeks are an exception because to be Greek is to be gay. Actually, you can quote me on that. I hope this goes to print one day. To be Greek is to be gay, like actually gay. But nevertheless, especially in Christian societies, it was outlawed. It was deemed inappropriate. When it did happen, the people were punished, ostracized, etc. So the reason that I say that we cannot allow gay people into the movement now, if a gay individual wants to vote the conservative ticket, then he is perfectly able to. I don't find any problem with that. But accepting them into the broader movement, the reason that I don't agree with that is because what I see is you cannot expect God to bless a movement, to bless a nation which tolerates any sin, like at all, any sin. Uh, all sin. We're obviously we're flawed individuals. We're going to be we're going to make mistakes, but ultimately sins, especially like homosexuality, abortion, which is murder, etc. You cannot, make an exception simply because, oh, this gay person, Becky Wise, has some good takes sometimes. That can't be that doesn't change the eternal decree of God. And so ultimately my position is I cannot in good conscience ask God to bless this movement, bless this country, so long as we tolerate homosexuality. I want to hear your take on that, and I have some other questions to do with that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I would go as far as I think those are very good and valid points, and I think that might be more the Christian nationalist side of you that's coming undone right there, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm sure, like I said, I'll probably find myself to that side of the spectrum, if you will. But I think we have to be very careful how we say this. And I think you did summarize kind of what I was saying earlier. It's not that I'll accept them, and I think maybe accepting them into the movement would probably be the wrong choice of words. But if they want to vote for the conservative candidate, obviously that's fine. We're not going to say, well, you can't vote for Trump because you're gay. That makes no sense. But in the broader scheme of things, if we have these individuals, and I'm trying to think of the proper terminology here, as long as we're not catering to their politics, as long as we're not accepting them, I don't necessarily see where the issue is going to be, because regardless, if they're going to vote conservative, they're going to vote conservative. As long as I'm not catering my stance to them or saying, hey, yes, I love gay conservatives. Like, no, I think that's fine. And it's at that point, it's out of our hands. It's not like, oh, you're gay, you can't be a part of this club. As long as I know I'm having a little trouble dictating this one at this time, but as long as we're not catering our beliefs and our opinions, I don't see necessarily a problem with it, is what the bottom line in my ideology is going to come down to. I will always pray for them, and I hope that they do find Jesus, and I hope they do repent and not give into the temptation of it. But in the end of the day, what it comes down to is I guess that's what I was trying to say. I know that was kind of all over the place right there. But as long as we're not catering our opinions and changing our politics to fit them in, I don't see necessarily where there's a problem with it. That's what I'll say on that.
Yeah, and I would say too, I have friends. I have friends who struggle with homosexual, are tempted with those desires, and ultimately, I pray for them, and I'm proud of them. I'm very proud of them for not giving into it, because it's especially in a culture that is so quote unquote accepting of sin and in the sin of sodomy. I'm very proud of them standing firm and saying, hey, look, this is against scripture. This is a sin against God. This is a slap in God's face, and I'm not going to give into it. It is my temptation, but I'm not going to give into it. And I'm very proud of those people. Amen. Ultimately. But what I would say, the problem is that we have begun to placate to the homosexual people. And the problem that I see happening is some people are beginning to placate to certain quote unquote trans people who are seen as quote unquote conservative, even though there is no such thing as a trans conservative. And we just won an election partly on this issue. I do not understand, and I will never understand, the Republican Party's and the conservative movement's obsession with trying to outflank the liberals and out-accept the liberals. I will never understand it, because all it has ever led to is the conservatives losing more and more ground, conserving nothing. That's part of my problem with it too, is 2 seconds ago, everyone was against gay marriage, and now everyone's accepting of it. It seems to me, at least from my vantage point, that we are not conserving anything of value. Maybe we're quote unquote conservative on economics, but at the end of the day, what does that matter? Sometimes you need to be a little bit progressive on economics to stop monopolies like BlackRock and Blackstone and Vanguard Group, Goldman Sachs, etc., and banks like JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, on and on. The more important issue, you can win as many elections as you want, you can pass as much economic legislation as you want, but if you don't have morality, then you don't have a foundation of a country, of a civilization. And ultimately, someone's morality is going to get enforced. Is it going to be the liberals' morality, which is subjective morality? It's doomed to fail ultimately. There needs to be a set standard. We are human beings. We need a standard. Subjectivity doesn't work with human beings because we inherently know that there is some standard. So ultimately, the question you should be asking yourself is, whose morality is getting enforced? Christian morality, Muslim morality, which is absolutely corrupt down to its very nature. So, and we do already legislate some morality, and this, can you go out and murder someone? Do you have a choice to murder an individual? If I stabbed you later, I mean, I'm going to prison. So we are legislating morality to a certain extent already. And so my problem with it is I continuously see this conservative movement conserving nothing. And it seems like, at first this was a Christian movement. This was a very Christian movement. But now we've sort of drifted away from that. We've accepted a lot of atheistic people. We have people like James Lindsay, who's an absolute retard. And these people move the conservative movement further and further away from Christ. And so that's part of my issue.
I mean, I think, again, just real quick to finish it up, at least on my side, I think that's very fair. And I do see a lot of people that cater and purposely go out of their way, again, to play identity politics. And I don't want to see that is not a party that I would vote for. The liberal and the left loves to do that. Let's let them have that. But I don't want to see us do that. And trans people, we can talk about that at some other time. But as long as we don't play identity politics, they're going to vote for who they vote for. It's just as long as we don't cater towards them or allow them to set up a table at TPUSA, like that kind of stuff right there, as much as that might be a tiny little thing. Oh, it's just a table. That will spread. Look at 2008 when Joe Biden went on TV and said, Barack Obama and I agree that marriage is between a man and a woman. And now look at where we're at. So as long as I think we need to be better and make sure we don't cater or play these identity politics games that our people on the other side of the aisle like to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. So moving on to another issue. By the way, that was wonderful. You did great. That's how you have a good discussion, ladies and gentlemen, between two people who disagree. But nevertheless, let's move on to the issue. So I'm interested to see kind of your thoughts on some of these Christian nationalist ideas. Ultimately, how much of the founder, I'm not trying to get you, but how much of the founding fathers have you read yourself?
Yeah, I'll be honest. That's probably an area that's not my biggest strong suit. I focused a lot on abortion and economic side, more of an analytical side. But the founders were actually, I'm going to go ahead and expose a little bit. We are starting a media company. Isaiah is a part of this media company here. And what we are going to do is we're going to do documentaries. We're going to go to all of the founders' properties. We're going to do like a week out there, documentaries for each individual one. And that's something we're going to do. So naturally, I'm going to have to strengthen my relationship and dive into the founders. About the most that I've read about the founders, I've watched a couple documentaries. I know I told you my favorite founder was John Adams. That was because I watched a great John Adams documentary. And I know that there are probably some questions on that. But in reality, that's something that I do need to focus on, and I will accept that. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert out here, but I think I know at least enough to get by. I can't quote things for a verbatim like you can, but give me a few months and we'll circle back to this conversation.
Absolutely, absolutely. So would you say that you would want to return the country to the intent of the founders?
Oh, absolutely. The founders 250-ish years ago, 240, they knew this country better than what liberals in the left side of the aisle, and honestly, frankly, a lot of conservatives do now. They knew it better. They knew exactly the issues that may lie ahead or the treacherous path ahead. And I would love to see more of the founders' ideas implemented and less stripped and taken away, and using like a great example, the separation of church and state as a club against every religious institution except the Muslim religion, apparently. I would love to see more of the founders' works within our society. And I do think we need to go back to the structure and what really lifted America up.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, would you say that you want a Christian nation? Would you say that?
Yeah, I believe that the Christian religion is perfect. I mean, down to its bones, it is perfect. Obviously, we can go over the Old Testament, and liberals and other people can cherry pick every little single verse, but overall, the Bible is perfect. I would love to see America return to a Christian nation. Again, I'm not 100% a Christian nationalist yet. Give me a little time to do some research on that, and I'm sure I'll have a different opinion. But the Christian religion overall is perfect, and I believe America has the potential to be perfect if we do follow that religion and stop going over these identity politics, stop going over the Quran, stop going over the Torah, which I'm not sponsored by AIPAC, by the way. Just have to let that know. But yeah, I think that.
What do you think of the Talmud? No.
Oh, Lord. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll ask you the same set of questions that I ask all my guests who answer that way. Blasphemy laws. Making it, by the way, for those at home, to define blasphemy laws would make it illegal to blaspheme the name of Jesus Christ in the Christian religion at any point in time. Those laws were in effect before the Founding Fathers. The Puritans were actually the first to put them into effect. Obviously, they're Puritans, they're Calvinists. Of course, we don't want to be blaspheming the name of Christ. They were in effect before the founders. They were in effect during the time of the founders. The founders did not strike them down, didn't say anything about them, let them go on. In fact, John Jay seemed to support them when he calls America a Christian nation and says that our rulers should be Christians. And they continue on up until 1952 when they're struck down. They are not removed by any state. They are struck down. In fact, they are still on the books in the state of Massachusetts and the state of South Carolina, for example. Massachusetts, as liberal as it is, still has blasphemy laws on the books, but they're unenforceable because of the Supreme Court decision. So my question to you is, would you support the revocation of that Supreme Court decision and a reinstitution of the blasphemy laws?
Yeah, and I just want to make sure I have proper clarification of this. If someone went to, let's just say, online and said, "I hate Jesus," for, let's just use an example, would that would constitute as blasphemy law in your picture world? Would that constitute?
Yeah, that'd be blasphemy. So, and the reason, and people say it's a violation of freedom of religion, they say it's a violation of freedom of speech. Ultimately, the freedom of speech principle must be regulated. There are some things that just are unacceptable to say. For example, if I say, Zachary, quote unquote, if I say, Zach, you know what? I'm going to kill you. Like, that's unacceptable. That's a threat. Also, I believe you're in the military. So that's probably another charge stacked on top. So there are certain things that are just unacceptable to say. So, saying blasphemous things online as well would count as a blasphemy.
Yeah. Well, I think, I would be in support of the blasphemy law to a certain point. I don't want us to go down the UK where, yes, they have a low percentage of numbers, but they have like murders, but they have like the highest percentage of people getting locked up after saying like just stupid things online. So I think it is a fine line. Where that line is, I couldn't tell you, and that's something that I will dive into with my research. But I would be in support of something like that. I know obviously you feel a strong way and would probably support that all the way. But I'd like to hear your take on that and better understand so I can help formulate my own opinion here.
Yeah, absolutely. So in my, viewpoint, I think it was punishable up to a couple years in prison for repeat offenders. Usually you got slapped with a really, really high fine for it. We used to have incentives in this country where, like, you just didn't do things, or you went to prison, or you got fined a huge amount of money. Ultimately, under my society, I would be more lenient with, kids, teenagers. They may say something blasphemous. We're probably going to be more lenient with a kid who's just being stupid. Ultimately, kids are really defiant. I'm an 18-year-old, and so, I can be defiant as well, just for the sake of being defiant. So I said we'd be more lenient with, younger people. But as you get older, you know how this country works. We don't blaspheme the name of Jesus Christ. This is a Christian nation. You come into a Christian nation, you're going to expect Christian laws. You're going to get Christian laws, and you're not going to be allowed to blaspheme the name of Christ. So that's kind of my view on that.
That's fair. I think that's a very valid point, and I would support something similar. I think it needs to be written out in a proper way to prevent a 7-year-old who's probably learning things from their mother and dad who don't like Jesus and don't believe in the Lord. But I would be open to an idea. I just would like to see it all written out. And you know what? I'll have to research the 1952 blasphemy laws getting struck down and make a good opinion and report back to you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, no, if your kid is out here blaspheming the Lord, you're getting a visit from the CPS. So, so, your child is being a parrot. But anyway, so there were also laws in the books for a very long time before they were struck down, requiring you to be a Christian in order to run for public office. In 9 of the 13 states, those laws were in effect. In most states, actually, you had to be Protestant. Maryland was an exception because Maryland was Catholic territory. That's where it gets its name, Maryland. Would you support the reinstitution of those laws requiring a man to be Christian in order to run for office?
I mean, I think that would be, honestly, I think that would be great, especially with how godless our society has drifted and how we keep having people sworn in on the Quran. I mean, that's the first one that comes to mind. I'm sure there's other religions out there too, where they're putting their hand on the Torah or the Talmud or whatever, the Talmud, as I like to call it. But no, I think that would be very important because we need to have strong leaders for this country. And there is nothing stronger than a man who worships the Bible or worships Jesus and God.
Careful.
And I think that would be important. I know that's definitely Christian nationalist of me to say. But if we were to trend in that direction, if we were to trend in that direction, I think that would be important. But again, this is something where I'd like to do my homework on and give a better answer. So, but I would be in support of something similar. I think that Jesus is Lord, and we've drifted so far away that we need to have a great awakening, honestly, in my opinion, and we need to basically almost hit the refresh button on America. We need to outlaw porn. I know that was one that Taylor Sharp, that was probably the only point that I agreed with Mr. Sharp on, was outlaw porn. But I think that's a good start, and we have a long way to go from being a godless society. But it is work that I would be willing to do. I know that you would be willing to do that. And that's my opinion.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think ultimately we probably won't, see the entirety of the fruits of our labor. Our children may complete the mission that, in the areas in which we fail to. But so what about Sabbath laws? Sabbath laws, of course, were on the books until struck down by the Supreme Court. And my, grandparents remember a time with, Sabbath laws. I have friends whose grandparents remember a time with Sabbath laws, which required some businesses deemed non-essential to be closed on Sunday. There were some exceptions, like the general store, maybe might be open in order you go get what you need. What are your opinion on Sabbath laws?
Well, I'm not in favor of that because I really want my Chick-fil-A sandwich. Oh, give me a break. That was the best point of the show. By the way, that's not my opinion. That was Mr. Sharp's opinion. But no, I would be in favor of that. And honestly, I feel like from a kid, there was a lot more businesses, especially the mom and pop shops, that would be closed on Sunday because that was the time of worship and that was the day of rest. I would be in favor of that. I think obviously to some exceptions of some pharmacies or some needed things to be open, of course. Some needed
hospital,
business. Yeah, hospital, of course. But I would love to see that. And I also remember, obviously, Christmas usually universally except Chinese restaurants, which I had some Chinese for Christmas this year. But I think universally that should be something that's adopted. I remember being a kid and Easter Sunday, the businesses were closed because obviously it's Easter Sunday. We don't see that anymore. It's pretty much only Christmas where most of the businesses, if not all, close down. So I would be in favor of that. I think we do need to return to a more Christian society, and that's another way to do it. Rest. It says it in the Bible. The seventh day he rested. And that's something that we need to have instilled back into our society. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, and that's what I've talked about last week. I said, people, what do I do on Sunday? Hear me out. Instead of going to Logan's Roadhouse, which I know is amazing, by the way, best steak in the world. Actually, no, that's Texas Roadhouse.
Yep. Thank you.
But instead of going to Texas Roadhouse, how about this? We go home and we cook our own food and we invite people from church over. See, that's the thing. People have lost a sense of even church community. Nobody knows each other at church anymore. Or, well, we have a few people we know at church, but we don't really. That's the one thing I love about my church. I'm Presbyterian. I attend a Presbyterian church. It's such a close-knit community. Everybody kind of knows each other, even if we're not real close, but we know of each other. And I've gotten close with people there. It's a family, and church really is a family affair. We are the family of God. And so getting back to saying, hey, we're making lunch, come over for lunch, hang out, let the kids play in the front yard, get all the young families. We've lost that as a society. We've lost that as a Christian community. We've lost that sense of fellowship. And I think getting that back, and I think Sabbath would be fantastic. I think Sabbath laws will contribute greatly to that sort of thing.
One thing to add on that note, and I'm glad you brought that up because church is very important, obviously. It goes without saying. But one thing that was really stripped from us during COVID, and I feel like it's finally starting to make a comeback, is as much as reading the Bible, the scriptures, enjoying a good, fruitful service, a lot of it also is the community that you get within church. And that's what was stripped from us during COVID. And we're seeing a comeback, but it's not there yet. And that's one of my biggest things against these mega churches. I used to go to a mega church. It was great at times, but there was no really sense of community. It felt more business style in a way, and it wasn't really a good community. So I do love my small but knit churches, and I would love to see our society go back to that and to reopening these churches, especially these small ones, because that is where you will learn the most, because you're going to have a great sense of community. I always loved when we'd have like a potluck once a month. Those were some core memories that I miss about having the small hometown churches, and that's something that I'd love to see come back.
Absolutely. And and I plan to do this. I'm putting my money where my mouth is at some point whenever I get older and I have a family, I have a wife, I have children. I plan to, and what I would want to do is to open up my home every Sunday afternoon for lunch for, people to come over, people we invite over. I think it'll be a great thing, great to build relationships, build community, let the children, like I said, let the children play in the backyard or the front yard or wherever, let the adults do some talking, whatever, and have dinner together, have community together. And so I plan to do that in my own household. And I think if more people did that, it'd be better for American society too, because part of the reason is we are more connected than ever, but we don't talk to each other. We are so disconnected and yet so connected at the same time. It's such a weird thing. But so anyway, we've talked about blasphemy laws. My last, I guess, question for you in terms of your own political philosophy is in regards to winning. What does winning look like to you? And I ask that because I've talked to a lot of conservatives, and they talk about winning. They talk about compromising to winning, or compromising in order to win, actually. And to me, that doesn't look a lot like winning. That looks a lot like admitting defeat in certain areas, in certain very important areas. That's not winning. So what to you does winning look like?
Yeah, well, I'll be honest. I really thought the compromise approach was good. That's why I always said the abortion to like the first trimester or whatever. I thought that was a great thing because, hey, we're winning. But this is what I've come to learn is why it may be winning in the moment while you may have a good compromise that keeps most people happy. You're not, because all they're going to do is they're going to come back and they're going to come and ask more and ask more. And as soon as that first trimester abortion ban, after that abortion ban takes place, then guess what? Then it's all of a sudden it's going to be, oh, well, maybe 20 weeks. So, well, maybe we can do a little bit later. And that's what compromise happens. So I am all in favor of basically, and this is probably not the right way to say it, but go for the throat. If you want to win, if you want to put your mouth where your philosophy is, then you need to get out there and you need to advocate, and you need to, in a way, and I don't mean this in the liberal sense, you need to take to the streets. And there's a better way to say that, of course, But I don't really believe in compromising anymore because that has not gotten anywhere. I think there are some issues that there probably is a little bit of wiggle room to compromise, maybe on the economic side, hey, taxes, etc. But as far as these social issues, as far as this theology and ideology with religion and politics, I don't think there's necessarily a compromise anymore, because that ultimately leads to bad decision, and that leads to corruption.
Absolutely. So now, before we go ahead and load up the chat with your questions. 28 people watching right now. Thank you guys so much.
Wow.
Make sure to like and subscribe. Load up the chat with your questions. We're going to be taking them very shortly. Right quick, though, before we do that, we've got something to look at. Yeah. If y'all don't know, Alex Preddy was shot over the when was it? It was over the weekend. Yeah, about a week ago. And he was shot. And ultimately, I haven't said anything publicly on it because I'm not going to lie, from the first videos I sent, it looked pretty bad. It looked pretty bad for ICE, looked pretty bad for this administration. But now we've got new footage come out. Now, I can't confirm that this is 100% Alex Preddy, but this definitely looks like him. And so we're going to take a look at this, and we're going to react to this, see what we think on this. So this is supposedly Alex Preddy leading up to the event which caused his death. So let's get into it.
This is a moment the news movement filmed on January 13th in Minneapolis, showing a man who appears to be Alex Preddy interacting with federal immigration agents 11 days before Border Patrol shot and killed him. Our footage was analyzed by the BBC, whose facial recognition technology confirmed his identity to a 97% degree of accuracy.
So 97% degree of accuracy.
On the morning of January 13th, our team received a tip that federal agents were blocking a street at the corner of East 36 and Park Avenue in Minneapolis. We arrived around 10:15 a.m. We saw observers shouting at the agents as they walked back to their vehicles. When they started driving away, the man kicked their taillight. An agent then got out of the vehicle, grabbed him, and pushed him to the ground. During the altercation, agents fired tear gas and pepper balls into the crowd. They continued to hold the man down before they retreat, and he walks away. The man in our footage is wearing a similar outfit to what Preddy was wearing on the day he was killed. What appears to be a gun is also visible above his waistband.
Yep, I see it. Let's roll back and let's look at it. Hold on.
Waistband. What appears to be a gun.
Right there. There it is. Yep.
Is also visible above his waistband. Here, he continues to stand at the scene. On the day he was killed, the Department of Homeland Security claims Preddy, a 37-year-old ICU nurse, approached officers holding a handgun. That claim has been contradicted by analysis of bystander videos from multiple news investigations, which concluded that Preddy was holding a phone, not a gun, when he was pinned to the street.
You sure about that?
Not passing the smell test.
Yeah. Are you sure about that? Okay, so we've seen the footage. You see what he was doing. What are your thoughts on this, Zach?
Well, yeah. So first of all, obviously, what had happened to Alex Preddy, and I'll still stand by this. I think that I'm not going to go out and fully say it was murder, what had happened, but it was a very unfortunate event, and I think the ICE agents, unfortunately, this time handled it the bad way. I will say that. Minnesota does have an open carry for firearms. I just made sure to research that piece. So, but here's the problem. I don't blame Alex Preddy. I think obviously that situation was tragic. I don't blame the ICE officers for what had happened. The situation overall was very tragic. But when you have Democrat politicians or politicians in general saying that ICE is the modern day Gestapo, or this is a civil rights issue, and they use this language to instoke and invoke fear into individuals. These are the results that you are going to get. Minnesota, time and time again, you have Jacob Fry shouting, "Get the F out, ICE." Those words reap consequences, and unfortunately, we're going to see unrest because of their words. Now, finally, Tim Walz, he basically conceded and let Trump come in and do what he's going to do. But this is the results of terrible leadership in Minnesota and really all across the country of instoking this fear into individuals. But again, I don't blame Renee Good. I don't blame Alex Preddy. I blame the leadership above them, putting this ideology in their heads and making it seem like their lives are completely in danger if they don't take to the streets. So that would be my opinion on that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And ultimately, like you, I don't think that the ICE agent operated correctly in this instance. Yeah. But ultimately, like I said, Alex Preddy's not there if not for rhetoric coming from the Democratic Party. Yep. Renee Good is not there. That one's more justifiable. But Renee Good is not there if it's not for the rhetoric coming from the Democratic Party. They're just not. These are immigration agents. Have they gone overboard sometimes? Yes, absolutely. Yep. But you don't destroy the police force because one police officer does a bad thing. Yep. People have said Trump is evil for this. Do you think Trump told the officer to shoot?
No,
you don't fire the police chief because one of the officers under him does a bad thing. No, you go after the officer who did it because they're the one who did it. So ultimately, I think that the ICE agent was in the wrong here for shooting the man. But if they were just allowed to do their job, this doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Right. If they were just allowed to enforce federal law, the Democrats were fine with this under Obama. They didn't care what Obama was doing. Obama deported 3 million people. It didn't matter to them then. It only matters now because Trump is doing it. And to an extent, I see the right falling into a similar trap where just everything the left does, even if it's good, is bad and evil because the left did it. Same way that the left is like, anything Trump does, even if it's good, even if we fought for it for years, it's bad because Trump did it. We can't do this. No. This is not intelligent. This is a low IQ, stupid thing to do. You are absolutely retarded if you argue this way because it shows that you have no critical thinking skills and it shows that you are not capable of behaving in polite society. And so ultimately, I've also seen people say that if you support ICE, you're pro-Israel. What the absolute hell are you talking about? Talking about being pro-Israel if you support ICE. I'm sorry. Mass migration. Do you know the people who supported the Hart-Celler Act of 1965, supported mass migration? There were Jewish organizations and Jewish individuals. What are you talking about? This is a pro-Israel thing. This was their thing. They wanted this. They wanted a protected class for certain minorities. This is not, and it's so stupid because the left has co-opted and stolen the low IQ people on the right who are so quick to blame Israel for everything, and they've just turned into leftists. It's so stupid, and we are being poisoned by low IQ anti-Semitism. So we're going to get into some questions here. Go ahead and load up the chat. 29 people watching right now. Make sure to like and subscribe and load up the chat with your questions.
God bless you all. Thank you for joining in today. This has been great.
Ewing is Gnostic. How, bro? How? I may support you, but how? While they're clones. Yes. Okay, so let me talk about that. So,
please. Yes, please tell this story.
So the reason that I found this guy is because 31 people watching right now. That's awesome. The reason that I found this guy is because I follow and I've been promoted by an account on Instagram. It's like National Youth Conservatives, whatever.
Yep.
I forget the exact name. And I saw they had posted one of his videos. It was a reel. And I had to do a double take because I saw it. And my first thought was, I was like, wait, is that me? And then I was like, no, I'm always in a suit. That's not me. And I looked up, I was like, dadgum, this guy looks just like me. And I follow him, I reach out to him, and I'm like, dude, we've got to do something together. Like this is my brother from another mother, man. So yeah, no, that's that's actually how I found him, is because I saw a video of him and I was like, man, this guy looks exactly like me.
Question, right.
for you, I guess, being in the Army, is the Navy gay?
Believe me when I tell you. No. Yes, actually, they did a statistic, and I believe it was 1 in every 10 Navy soldiers were, or no, Navy sailormen or whatever, seamen, excuse me, there you go, are gay. And I know that number is a lot higher, but yes, the Navy is gay. But this is not the Department of War talking, okay? I have no affiliation with the Department of War. I'm just
This
putting
is the
that out here.
Department of War talking.
No, 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 no.
These are Pete Hegseth's opinion. No.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Just because
Right.
I have the book doesn't mean that, okay?
Oh, what book is that?
Actually, The War on Warriors by Pete Hegseth. Oh, I have a very radical take on something, by the way.
You want to give it?
I don't know. Should I chat? Should I?
Yes.
We'll see in the chat.
This is we'll see. We'll see here in a minute. We'll see. Okay. Isaiah Presley LaClone. Yes, indeed. Indeed.
This is great.
I'm not eating that liberal European food. Hey, but it is better for you though.
Yeah.
Objectively.
It is. They don't have the artificial dyes in there that cause hyperactivity in kids. That's why we have such an ADHD and ADD spike in America.
Mm-hmm. How do we deal with greedy people and companies in today's economy? Everyone is greedy today. How do we deal with this issue? Yeah, so ultimately with companies specifically, we're going to just have to start enforcing the laws that we've had on the books since the 1890s. How do you think Roosevelt was able to deal with the monopolies in his day? Ultimately, we need a Rooseveltian style policy to deal with these greedy companies, and that just comes from enforcing the law. But what happens is so many of our politicians are bought off by companies like BlackRock, and they won't enforce the laws because they're too scared to, and because they're getting money from these companies. So ultimately, we need to enforce these policies, and we need to introduce new legislation. Stop companies from buying up these homes, single-family homes.
Here's a great one too that I may add. I think we need to ban super PACs from election interference because that's what they're doing in reality. And we also need to probably ban at least most of the lobbyists. We should not have people funded by AIPAC. We should, oh no, Israel, don't come after me. We should not have people funded by big pharma either, like Bernie Sanders. So that's one way that we could stop this. Stop giving party favors. And I will say, as much as I love Donald Trump, he's guilty of this too. When you have people, and this was an actual report, the most people who brought his Trump meme coin, his crypto that he had, they got a spot at a dinner with him. Like, you cannot have these things in politics. And that would be a critique of mine for him. So
absolutely. But ultimately, like I said, we do need a Rooseveltian type figure to come in and, use that big stick and whack these companies over the head. And I would be more than willing to do that. There's my campaign, my campaign pitch. Day one, we're suing BlackRock.
What would your slogan be? Isaiah LaFone carries a big stick. Would that be?
Make America free again, man. We just want to make America free again. All right. Are you an establishmentarian in terms of a Republican establishmentarian? Absolutely not. I've lost more opportunities than you would ever realize because I'm not an establishmentarian, because I'm a dissident, quote unquote. So definitely not an establishmentarian. If I had to describe myself with a political label, I would probably call myself a federalist. A federalist or a nationalist conservative. A true conservative, actually. I am more in line with the with historic American conservatism than most of the quote unquote conservatives today.
Yeah.
So, okay. Should we deport Catholics? They are the original foreign influence in America. So true they are. That's the reason the nativist flag exists. Native Americans, beware of foreign influence. Yeah. My opinion on Catholics in America, I don't have a set opinion on that at this point in time. I go back and forth whether we deport them or not. No, I'm kidding. But I do. I don't have a set opinion on that yet. What about you? What do you think? Should we deport the Catholics?
Oh, get rid of them. No. So, I tell you what, as long as they're following the Bible, and I'd say they're pretty okay. And I think they're getting better. It really depends. Like, the new Pope, I will say I do like Pope Leo a lot better than the previous one. At least he will condemn gay marriage and condemn abortion. That was one of the great things he wrote into the pro-life march. And he had a little letter that he said, and he's so proud of us. And he actually participated in a March for Life back in like the 1970s or 80s, somewhere a wee bit ago. But yeah, I think they may be turning the page. We'll see. I'm not really a fan of the Catholics, and I have a lot of family that are Catholics. But, when I took an AP European class and they told me how they used to pay to relieve their sins, that basically lost all the trust for me. But
Yeah, the indulgent system. Yeah.
yes.
All right. Okay, let's see here. What are we doing here? All right. What's your denomination? I'm Presbyterian. What are you?
Talking to me? Yeah. No, I you know what? I will say this is through my entire life, my family went more off the sense of community in the church. So I originally started out Catholic with my mom, like until I was 2 years old. Then we went Lutheran, which is a big difference. Lutheran's much better, by the way. Then we went over to the Methodist side, then Episcopalian. So I would say my overall denomination as of now would probably be Protestant. I'd say that's probably summarizes it up best. But yeah, maybe I'll float around and see what the Presbyterians can offer me. Apparently, Isaiah speaks highly of them.
We're gonna get him to be Presbyterian. We're gonna get a new one. All right, we're going out into the world and we're making disciples. Okay. Should sodomy have the death penalty? No, we're not gonna kill them for it.
No.
We would have to talk about a jail sentence for that, but we're not gonna kill them. Is it true that Moses was high when he got the 10 Commandments? If not, how did that lie get so popular? I don't know. I've seen some like weird people online talk about Moses doing shrooms, and like yeah, shrooms are in the Bible, bro. I banned a guy from my Discord server for arguing that nonsense. But people just like to make up crap. He was not high. That's ridiculous, dude. That's ridiculous. I think some people will say that because he experienced God, and so they'd rather believe that a man was high on shrooms than that God exists.
Yeah.
And that just goes to show you how many excuses man will make up in order to remain in his sin.
Yeah.
Isaiah loves the Second Federalist paper. I do love the Second Federalist paper because it is a great summation from John Jay on what the Founding Fathers envisioned for the United States. It's a great summation. Read the second paper. Is it blasphemous for a layperson to distribute communion? I'm not taking too many theological questions, but I don't think it's blasphemous. I just think you shouldn't be doing it. Okay. LaFone and Lincoln documentary win. Also, LaFone and Teddy Roosevelt documentary win. Hey, man, look, whenever the big man gives me the green light on that, we'll work on that.
We're working on it, all right? I promise you. We're going to get there. We got to get a little bit of money coming in, but it'll be on our new platform. And, yeah, we start with George Washington on July 4th, so make sure you do.
My king.
Huh?
I said my king, George Washington.
Oh, yes.
Indeed. Hey, what's up, Taryn? How you doing, bud?
Oh, my Lord, it's Taryn. Get out of here, Taryn.
Let's see here. LaFone in Lincoln's footsteps. That's kind of a fire. And let's work on the title. Let's work on that title. Adams is my favorite founder too. Well, then you're just gay. No, I'm kidding.
Crazy. Don't listen to him, Mr. McQueen.
John Jay is an infinitely superior founding father to idolize.
James Madison wrote the Declaration of Independence, right, Isaiah?
Exactly. James Madison, my favorite dude, my favorite author of the Declaration of Independence, and Article 1, Section 8. Even though the Declaration almost just like never, just that's the Constitution, brother. But anyway, and my thing with this too. Let me go into this too. If he means the Constitution, let's be very clear about this. Most of James Madison's ideas were rejected from the U.S. Constitution. Yeah. You can read that in his notes. Most of his ideas were rejected. The man who you could point to as, most responsible for the Constitution we have today is a man by the name of James Wilson. James Wilson, most of his ideas were accepted. And we'll probably talk about James Wilson in an episode of our Founder series.
This was Mr. Sharp's notes, by the way.
Oh man, the first 5 books of the Torah means instruction or teaching. First 5 books of the Bible are the Torah. Yes, indeed. But the and that's why I hate people who are like, oh well, the Jews, they believe in the Old Testament. No, they don't believe in the Old Testament, because if they believed in the Old Testament, they would be Christian. Alrighty. Do you expect that while we're alive, we will actually become a Christian nation? I believe that within 50 years, we'll be a lot closer than we think. I'm a very optimistic person, and I believe that, we will see some of the fruits of our labor, though we will not see it all. Our children will probably complete the journey for us. But
yeah, I
okay.
think if I can add real quick on that question,
Mhm.
I think we're headed in the right direction. With Generation Z is becoming a lot more Catholic and Christian altogether. So I think we are headed in the right direction. I think there will be a tipping or a breaking point where it just basically sends us into a free-for-all until we collect ourselves into a Christian nation, whether that's a civil war or something else. But there will be a major event. Mark my words. Quote Zachary Martin today on January, what is today, the 28th?
28th.
Yep, 28th. That we will have some major thing occur, that we will transform ourselves into a Christian nation.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that may happen in our lifetime. It may not. We will see. I would expect if there would be a civil war, something of that nature, I would expect that to happen within the next 20 to 30 years or so. While liberalism still has a stake, because in 50 years, I believe that with, the fact that most we're going to outbreed the liberals. We're just going to outbreed them. And in 50 years, people are going to look around and ask why the country's so conservative. And, look, y'all are killing children. We're having children. So that's just how it's going to be. Liberalism is a self-destructing concept. Let's see here. Would you two support doubled evangelism efforts in order to bring these policies into reality? Is evangelism necessary to do so? Yes, absolutely. You got to change hearts and minds and bring people to Christ ultimately.
Yeah, that's the only way it's going to work.
Absolutely. As a Chick-fil-A employee, hands off my Lord today. So true, King. So true. Okay. So your stance is basically an LGBT person comes to the movement and they say they want to vote in a conservative way. When you tell them we don't agree or accept LGBT and they are okay with it, then okay. So yeah, my view is if they want to vote the conservative ticket, that's fine. But I don't believe in having, their booths at our events and having gay influencers, influence the conservative movement. I don't believe in that.
I would echo the same exact thing. I think that's the point I was trying to hit. So yeah, as long as we're not playing identity politics or trying to go out of our way to say, hey, we're accepting and tolerant of LGBT individuals, I think we'll be fine. Don't be putting them at TPUSA events or any of that. And yeah, if they still choose, regardless of what we have to offer, if they still choose to vote alongside us, then why not? Not like we're going to say, oh, you're at the polls. Are you gay? Oh, sorry. We got to give you a Democrat ballot. No, that's not how it works.
Yeah. The small churches are often the best churches I have experienced. So true, King. So true, King.
Amen.
Uncle LaFone traces Teddy Roosevelt through history. That would be funny. That would be funny. We would go out to the Dakota Territory too and mark his journey as a cowboy. That'd be great. All right. I'm going to Isaiah's house every Sunday after church. Awesome, bro. Moved to North Carolina and I did invite you over. Samesies. Let's go, bro. Love to have you. Chat, I would hold on. We need the authorities. This man has violated the great meme reset of 2026. We don't do brain rot anymore. Thoughts on the channel Right Wing Coalition? I think he's based. I've not seen too much stuff I disagree with. I've seen some that I disagree with, obviously. But I think he's pretty based. He's about to lose his his name's about to be released out there because he's writing a book. But I think he's based. There's some things I disagree on, but yeah. What do you think? Have you seen him?
Right Wing Coalition. I don't believe I've had the honor of doing it, but I trust you. Yeah, so I'll have to look into it.
Yeah,
probably read his book.
Thoughts on the new channel Supremacy of Christ Studio and his videos on Luther? Haven't seen it. Okay. Thoughts on the orange juice in their lives? Pass. I know what you're talking about. Based, kind of. Thoughts on the retard allegations? What, am I being accused of being a retard? No. Listen, every accusation is an admission. Every accusation is an admission. So if I'm being called a retard, the other person's a retard. But when I call you a retard, I'm just correct. So that's how that works.
Duh.
All right, let's see. Thoughts on Judeo-Islamic values?
Is that even a thing?
I guess. Hey, look, it can be.
How? Oh,
I guess if you're talking about like, I mean, the reason the Jews were thrown out of Spain was because they like technically actually did unite with the Muslims in order to conquer Spain, and so they talk about how we've been kicked out of everywhere for no reason. It's like, no, there were some reasons. The Jews and the Muslims have been really bad about uniting with each other against Christianity. Hey, look, it really is us against the world. It really is Christianity against all y'all. My Presbyterian Korean friend says hi. What's up, man? Good to see you. Tell him I say hi too. He's wondering if you would like to try Korean barbecue. Sure, dude. I'd love to. I'd love to.
super good.
Wilhelmius, what were you doing between 1939 and 1945? Just a question. Just a question. I'm just asking questions. What were you doing from 1939 to 1945? Care to answer? Top 5 books. Yeah, so number 1 book of all time is obviously the scriptures. Obviously the Bible. Number 2 book for understanding politics, because I would have a different answer for theology and politics, but if you're just top 5 books all time, understanding the political state that we're in, Revolt of the Elites, and The Betrayal of Democracy by Christopher Lasch is a really good one. Trying to think, I'd have to throw a theology book in there, and that'd be On the Incarnation by St. Athanasius, 1700-year-old book on the incarnation of Jesus Christ. The best theology book ever written. It's beautiful. And let me think here. So On the Incarnation, Lex Rex, number 4. Yep, there we'll put that there. Lex Rex, and then 5th, probably 5th best book I've read. Probably, man, dude, there's so many good options. I'm gonna go with dude, I can't pick. I think I'm probably gonna go with the book on Abraham Lincoln, John Meacham's, and There Was Light, the biography on Abraham Lincoln, one of my favorite books. It's a wonderful biography of Lincoln. I don't believe Meacham is a conservative man or a Christian man, but it is a wonderful biography by itself. Why does Zach look like Isaiah with a tan? Because he is. We were twins, actually, but we were just separated at birth. Okay. Do you think J.D. Vance would be able to be that president? No. Ultimately, I really don't know what J.D. Vance even believes, because he's flip-flopped multiple times. I believe that he will be good as long as we keep him doing what we want him to do. But ultimately, he's not our savior. He is not going to be the president who's going to actually, do and complete the tasks that we want completed. I don't trust him to get the job done.
I have a bold take on this. I believe he's going to be similar to a George H.W. Bush, but a more charismatic and strategic version of George H.W. Bush. I'd say Trump kind of mirrors a Ronald Reagan-esque type presidency, definitely a populist type movement. I think J.D. Vance is going to be able to take a version of the MAGA movement or the Trump coalition and make it his own, but I think it's going to be a watered down version of what it really is. One thing I can tell right off the rip I don't like about J.D. Vance, that Signal chat that got leaked, he's definitely on the isolationist side of things, just by the way he was talking and how he didn't want to blow up the people in Hamas, or not the, it was
the Iranians.
Yeah, yep. So I'm a little skeptical of him as far as foreign policy goes.
Mm-hmm. And ultimately, I think what we really need in society right now, what we need for America right now, we need an Abraham Lincoln or an Andrew Jackson type president who's going to come in. He's going to do some unorthodox things, but ultimately, he's going to get the job done. He's going to do what needs to be done. And I'll say this: if I ever run for president and you guys decide that it's the best option to elect me as president, that's exactly what you'll get. You'll get a Jackson/Lincoln type presidency from me. More so Jackson because I'm Southern, but no slavery. Okay. Seahawks or Patriots, Chuds? Patriots, bro. Drake May, dude. The savior of football, bro.
I think the
How about the
Seahawks are
Patriots?
going to win. I think Vegas will make sure it's a very close game, but overall, I
Vegas.
think the Seahawks. Yeah, well, Vegas is in it. Let's be honest; they're in bed with the
Yeah.
NFL.
Absolutely, absolutely. But hey, Drake May, bro, the king.
Drake May.
Patriots are going all the way. Patriots are winning the Super Bowl. That's my my prediction. Okay, be careful what you'll say, Nickel Rage. About what, sir? About what? Okay. Isaiah LeClone again. Cole, good to know. Why is Zach in the back corner of Allie Beth Stuckey's set?
Oh,
Why
man.
are you in the back corner of Allie Beth Stuckey's set?
Well, I just hey, I need more respect than that. All right, this is homemade. I created this. This was my creation here that I spent over $1,000 on. It's a very nice set. It's quite frankly one of the best sets. But yeah, we're gonna do some upgrades. Don't worry. So I don't want to hear that comment ever again, Mr. Williams Helms Lounge. Wilhelm's
Yeah,
Lounge.
well, homies, you still haven't told me what you were doing between 1939 and 1945. I'm very interested in that.
Yes.
Also, are you from Argentina? Adams is the best founder. No, I'm sorry, dude. Why are all the chuds going with Zach today? Dude?
Chuds.
Come on, bro.
Chuds.
I'm being betrayed by my own people. 39 people watching right now, by the way.
Wow. Let's
amazing.
keep this going. I love this.
Absolutely. What if a future generation undoes all of our Christian beliefs like the 60s? Yeah, the cure to that is just putting better protections in place than we had last time. A lot of the Constitution is a good document, but it's not a perfect document. Our founders assumed we would keep morality because, I mean, John Adams said that our government was made for a moral and religious people. It's inadequate to the governing of any other. Benjamin Franklin, when asked what government we created, he said a republic if you can keep it. They thoroughly trusted us to just keep it, but ultimately we have ultimately failed at that, and we need to put better protections in place. Is JFK a communist? No, but if you're asking me who I would vote for in the 1960 election, it would have been Nixon, because JFK wrote Nation of Immigrants, in which he, helped to argue for the reformation of the immigration laws in the United States, which led to the Hart-Celler Act of 1965.
Bold take. Nixon was not that guilty. What had
That's
happened?
not a bold take. That's kind of a very cold take. Nixon was kind of that guy. He gets a bad rap. The thing that ruined Nixon's legacy, and everyone should remember this, the thing that ruined Nixon's legacy is the fact, well, he pushed us off the gold standard, which technically Franklin D. Roosevelt started, but Nixon pushed us all the way off, which was a mistake. But the other thing is he wasn't really that involved in Watergate. He was set up by the FBI and CIA. They brought it to him. They said, all right, what do you want us to do? And he said, cover it up. And that was the day that ended Nixon's presidency. But Nixon, much better. He would have been much better for everything that was going on in the 1970s, the Iranian hostage crisis, etc. All that was going on. He would have handled that a lot better than Carter did. And Nixon talks about this too in an interview. He said, with the whole Iranian situation, when we had that hostage crisis in the 1970s, he said Carter came out and immediately said, we're against using force. We're not going to use physical force to get the hostages out. That was a massive mistake because you took a huge card off the table. The Iranians weren't scared anymore. They knew that they could do whatever they wanted. So, how do we continue to make progress within the Reconquista? Keep gaining new membership in the conservative churches and continue to take back these denominations. These denominations helped found the United States. Presbyterian Church, Episcopalian Church, etc. They helped found the United States of America. And so I don't think we get America back without getting these denominations back. I'm on the compute now. Cool. Good to know, Gabe. So I can chat. What's up, Gabe? How you doing, brother? Judeo-Islamic values is more accurate. Okay. Here we go. Give the controversial take. You talked about this controversial take you had earlier.
Yeah.
Give the controversial take.
Honestly, if you look at it statistically, what Pete Hegseth, and he had to flip-flop because he was, of course, running for the Secretary of War, but women in the armed force, they do not belong in the armed forces. And what do I mean by that? Because that sounds pretty radical, right? If you look at it, the men and women, first of all, there's lower standards for the women. They have to purposely put lower standards. I don't care if you are a woman, you should be able to do the same exact stuff as males have to do. I think we should get rid of these double standards that we have. You should be doing the same thing, because guess what? You're preparing for the same battle. You're going into the same battle. So why are you not going to be as prepared as the men in the battle? And what I will say on that note as well is, if you look at the statistics, and I'm going to be off just a little bit, but if you go back to the Iraq War, they had the same training. Everyone across the board had the same training, but yet women died on a 3-to-1 basis compared to the men. That doesn't really, and you have the same training, you're in the same air, everything. So I don't think that women belong in the armed forces. And I know that's a big, bold take. And I think that we need to do better as far as that goes. Obviously, there are some great warriors. There are some women who outshine the men. That's 100% for certain. There's a great first sergeant or sergeant major now named Janiyah Simmons. She's fought with stage 4 cancer. She's an Army Ranger. She is one badass woman. But what I will say is that overall, it's kind of like the bell gap here. Overall, women do not perform to the standards that men do in the military, and I don't think that there should be 2 sets of standards. That is my bold take.
Yeah. Well, I agree with that too. I mean, like, if nothing else, keep women off the front lines to the fact that they are extremely valuable to society. They literally, in case you didn't know this, Chuds, I know most of you haven't talked to a woman that's not your mother. Just kidding. But women, like, they make babies like in their body. It's like actually really cool that they can like do this, like, 10 out of 10, great job. And if nothing else, it is their job, part of their job, to reproduce and to provide us with the next generation who will inherit the nation and inherit the society and keep the society and the customs and the country going. That is part of their job. And if nothing else, keep them off the front lines so that we're not killing the people who are going to produce the next generation.
Exactly.
So let's see here. Wilhelmius World War II confirmed. He hasn't confirmed it yet, but I'm 100% certain that he may or may not have been in Berlin, in Germany, from 1939 to 1945. Did you know the Austrian painter? I wonder. Their theology, referring to Muslims, their theology wasn't even standardized or developed until the Middle Ages. Yeah, and the Quran as it exists today wasn't even standardized till like the 1980s. And there's like about 36 versions of it. I'm reading on the Incarnation right now. That's awesome, brother. That's great. Christian, shut up. Shut up, bro. Go Pats. Now here's a guy who doesn't know ball. Man.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'll reframe my original thing. I think women belong in the military as like a civil war or revolutionary war, where were typically the medics or the nurses, and they handled like the little minute details, but they should not be on the front lines at all. And that's how you have more underdeveloped soldiers out there. So I will say that. Yeah.
Who is your mentor or mentor type figure that influences your politics? Well, one that is living now, no, there's none that are living that are my mentor, because most of them are compromised in some way. But a mentor type figure, probably Andrew Jackson would be one. And I've talked about him a lot, and I will continue to talk about him. We are quite similar people. Other than I wouldn't support an Indian Removal Act. In fact, I support the abolishment of the reservations and the integration of the Native Americans into broader American society, because ultimately, what do they have on the reservations? Casinos, drunkenness, they're beating their children, they're beating their wives. There's little economic opportunity. Integrate them into American society. And so, and no slavery thing. But I would say Andrew Jackson influences a lot of my political ideology. John Jay influences a lot of my thinking regarding the Constitution. Alexander Hamilton, some of my thinking regarding the Constitution, I disagree with him on some economic matters like the National Bank. Obviously, I'm a Jacksonian. And then Abraham Lincoln. So I would say probably John Jay, Andrew Jackson, and Lincoln would be 3 big influences for. Well, also George Washington. George Washington has been my hero since I was really, really little. While the other kids were pretending to be Spider-Man and Superman, Your boy was pretending to be George Washington. So I would say Washington, Jackson, Jay, and Lincoln. What would you say?
Well, George Washington had to be up there as well as Abraham Lincoln. I also really liked Teddy Roosevelt and more because of foreign policy. Yes. I'm a big stick diplomacy. That's the teeth behind the Monroe Doctrine. That's probably the best way to summarize it up. But yeah, I would say those two. If we're looking at modern day, and I know this is very controversial and your crowd's not going to like this one, but I really do enjoy Ben Shapiro. I don't agree with everything he says. All right, let's relax there. But I do think he has a lot of takes.
He's bought out by APAC guys.
Yeah, I am. I'm compromised. But one thing that I really did appreciate about him is he went to AmFest and he called a lot of those speakers out. He called them out. He said, you continue to peddle this narrative. And I can admire someone who's going into that kind of territory and saying, hey, Megyn Kelly, compromised, Tucker Carlson, idiot. I really do appreciate that. And I've listened to Ben Shapiro for quite a bit now. So as far as modern day, let's see who else. John Adams, for all my John Adams lovers out there. Yeah, he's definitely up there as well. And, I really do like TJ, Thomas Jefferson as well. He helped out a lot. And in the John Adams.
Cringe. No.
Oh, get out of here. Get out of here, Isaiah. Get out of here, Isaiah LeClone. But yeah.
Well, you talk about Ben Shapiro. See, I used to be I still like Tucker Carlson. I like some of the stuff he says, but I've kind of soured on him more and more as of late because he's so pro-Islam now. It's just it's cringe.
Exactly.
You can be anti-Israel and anti-Islam. Actually, I do it all the time. 10 out of 10 would recommend. We can be anti-Judaism and anti-Islam. And so I've soured on him quite a bit. Megyn Kelly, I didn't really understand. I don't understand the attacks on her. She just seems like a sweet lady who may or may not be riding the fence a little bit. But nevertheless, Candace Owens absolutely deserves everything. Everything that comes toward her, she deserves it all. You better mention the no slavery thing in your campaign. Otherwise, the Northerners will grab you by the throat.
All right.
Okay. I will make sure to mention that. Should we prioritize promoting people who show virtue rather than people who aren't very good role models for women? Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. We need a new elite class of virtuous, intelligent, and Christian men.
Big time.
I knew it. He spent I knew it, dude.
Compromised.
Should women write novels and books? They can. Yeah, sure. That shouldn't trump their main goal of being the caretaker of the home and a mother to their children and instructing their children. But yeah, they can. What books you got back there, Zach?
Well, should I start with the one that I did a book report on?
Sure.
Yeah. Well, see, I'm going to pull it out just because it's, one big thing I will say to all the, how many people are tuning in right now?
We have almost basically 40 people on here.
Okay, great. One thing I will say, and I think it's very important to understand and to develop your own opinions as much as you can read your conservative material and read the Federalist Papers. It is worthwhile to pick up a different perspective on the other side of the aisle to formulate a good opinion and also see what they are using to defend their opinions.
Pull out Mein Kampf.
No, I'm right. So
guys, I was
no. So I read this mostly for the laughs, but this was a really easy read. I'll say that I got through it within like 2 days, not even like a day. 107 Days by Kamala Harris. Like I said, it was mostly for the laughs and the lore. But it was just very, very interesting nonetheless. But and real news and real books that I have back here. Like I mentioned, you have to know the other side and where they're coming from. So I have a copy of Capital by Karl Marx. I have The Parent Revolution. 10 out of 10 recommend that book. That was amazing. It talks about the school choice movement, which is something that I firmly do believe in. We also have Facts Don't Care About Your Feelings by Ben Shapiro. Defeating Big Government Socialism, Newt Gingrich. The Accidental President with Harry Truman, a couple other Ben Shapiro books. Pete Hegseth is here, and then the U.S. Constitution and other key America writings. And then my favorite, the NIV Application Bible. I have some more books. They're over on the stand that I'm reading currently. But this is just a few goodies that I have on my wall, but I have more back there. I also have a really good book by Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow is a very good guy, in my opinion. But
Absolutely. So let's see here. I really bro's gonna be like, all right, so guys, I've been reading The Other Side. This is Mein Kampf. It's written by a certain Austrian painter. I've just been looking into it,
Yeah.
Okay. Should they also make movies? No. Does Zach have a girlfriend?
Yes, I do. I surely do. I don't know if she's on, but I do have a girlfriend. I've been with her for 3-4 months now. But yes, it's been very good. We both believe that Christ should be the center of our relationship. We both pray all the time, pray together, pray over our food. I only get to see her about once a week because she lives about an hour away from me. But I do cherish those moments, and I do highly believe in something that my last interviewee said, Miss Tamira Neely, and that's keep the cookie on the table, meaning abstinence before marriage. I do strongly believe in that, and I think we need to have more of that in our society. I know we're all going to have unfortunate bad moments or sinful moments, but if we can try to limit that and promote good Christian values, then that's what we should do. So her and I are great together, and yeah.
That's great. I didn't know I was speaking to George Risington over here.
George Risington.
You guys like Booker T. Washington? Yes, Booker T. Washington was a brilliant gentleman. A brilliant gentleman. Okay, bro. Listen, monarchists can go somewhere. If you are a monarchist in America in the big 2026, you are a cringe person. Okay. Haha, now I'm on Twitter. What's up, Gabe? Bro's on Twitter. Thoughts on MLK's extramarital affairs? Yeah, he was cringe. MLK Jr. was a compromised individual. He was a communist agent. He was a freaking Marxist. And yeah, he didn't believe in the divinity of Christ. He didn't believe in the resurrection of Christ. He didn't believe in the virgin birth. And ultimately, the civil rights movement was just racked with communist influence. And that's the terrible thing about it. Because I think that, we can appreciate, the fact that I think that all men should be equal and equal before the law as well. And so we can appreciate that. We'll understand that MLK Jr. was not a good man. He was a bad man. So
Malcolm X was better. Bold take.
So true, King. And then he left the Nation of Islam and they killed him. Thoughts on Joseph Jackson? I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I know who Joseph Jackson is. I'm just making sure that I have the right person I'm thinking. I'm thinking of the guy who was he was a civil rights leader, but he was more based than MLK. Yes, Joseph H. Jackson, president of the National Baptist Convention. He was a conservative. Yeah, he was also a conservative. I think I appreciate his work a lot more than Martin Luther King Jr. He was a true Christian. He was a true believer. And he called out MLK in a lot of ways. And he actually worked to kick the liberals out of the National Baptist Convention, which is based, and we should all be doing that. All right. Any last questions before we wrap up this show tonight? We've got 41 people watching right now. We've been going an hour and 46 minutes. Thank you guys so much. Make sure to like and subscribe and put your last questions in the comment section. Questions you have for me or for Zach, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up.
While we wait on some questions coming in, Mr. LaFone, I need to confirm with you that you will be joining my podcast and live stream on Monday.
I will, sir. So all of y'all know that we don't have a show on Monday, but I will be joining Mr. Martin's show this Monday. What time again is it?
Oh, 8 p.m. Or would you all prefer 8:30? Typically 8 p.m. though for me. 8 p.m. ET.
8 p.m. Eastern time should work for me.
Okay, perfect. We'll do it then. It's at the Martin Memo, so I don't know what you all are doing right now, but make sure you go and subscribe there too, so we can have a great episode with Mr. LaFone.
Absolutely, and a lot of great things are coming, so make sure you're subscribed, make sure you're keeping up to date. Like you said, we got a media company coming, and we'll be giving more details about that coming soon, and we'll have a series on the Founding Fathers coming very soon as well. So any last questions, put them in the chat, and we will go ahead and wrap up this show tonight. Thank you guys so much for watching. I am always very appreciative Our numbers have been incredible recently,
Yeah.
and I want to tell you all how much I appreciate that. We were struggling to get 100 views per show for a while, and now we're averaging about 200 up into 300 now, and so we've been gaining viewership, we've been gaining a new audience. So I want to thank you all so much. Those of you who have stuck with me back when I was just a theology channel and through the transition to politics, I want to thank you all so much. And
sorry,
we did, I transitioned.
Wow.
This is a trans YouTube channel. We just did theology, and then we transitioned over to politics. So we do theology sometimes as well too. So send in your last questions, guys. We'll wrap it up.
While we're waiting on that, I do want to say to all the wonderful viewers out there, Isaiah Lafone, since the day I started talking to him, when he randomly sent me a message saying we're twins, I knew this guy was very special, and you all have such a loyal and great community, and Isaiah is one of a kind. So I'm very fortunate to have met him and to be able to share this platform with him and talk with him all the time and gain some knowledge. And he's wonderful. So you all have a very good host in Mr. Lafone. But it's always a pleasure getting to talk to this guy. He keeps me on my toes, that's for sure.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, brother. That means a lot to me. Will Zach join the Reconquista? Zach, the Reconquista is this movement to retake the mainline Protestant denominations, so the Episcopal Church, the Presbyterian Church, these churches that have fallen to theological liberalism. I'm part of the Presbyterian Church USA, which is the mainline Presbyterian denomination. We're working on retaking it from liberalism. If you become, when God leads you to the one true church, which is the Presbyterian Church, when that happens, will you join the Reconquista effort to kick liberal theology out of the church?
Well, first of all, I'm a little insulted that you didn't think I knew what that meant. I did my homework before coming on the Isaiah Lafone.
Let's go.
So, excuse me. It's all right. We'll fix that. But yeah, I plan on doing that. So
let's go. That's awesome. All right, we've got a question from Ethan McQueen. This has been some relationship advice. Zach, how does one speak to a female?
Well, the first thing you want to do is say, hey, get back in the kitchen. And no, this is honestly the best thing you can do. And I don't know if this is a satire comment or not, but be truthful to yourself. And I know that sounds so based, but don't pretend to be someone you're not. If you believe in the morals that you have within the Bible and within your ideology, then you're going to do just fine. And another thing is God will put someone in your life that is good for you. So if you sense an urgency that maybe that person's not for you, it's probably God telling you that they're not. So I wouldn't rush it. Take your time and you will find someone good. I know I took my time and went through a lot of trial and tribulations with my past relationships. But honestly, just take your time, enjoy the moment, and be true to yourself. And love will find you. I promise you that. And don't settle. That's my biggest thing. I've settled in the past. I've done some really dumb things that I'm not proud of, but it was such a good learning experience, and it made me the man that I am today. When you're with a girl, one of the biggest things that they will notice, I promise you, if you do this, every time that you're in the car together, open up her door. That is such a genuine thing. And we have lost the
Amen.
Based, yeah. Open up the door. They take note of that. Take time and say, hey, listen, I am here for you. Be that provider, and also make sure that God is the center of your relationship and everything you do. The movement that I've created, that Mr. Lafone has created, God is the center. Christ is the center.
Amen.
And if more people have them in their life, the more we're going to have a better society. I'll put it like that. But I know that was sidetracked a little bit. But yeah, make sure that God is the center of every decision that you make, and pray on it. Pray on your decisions.
Absolutely. Will you tell North Koreans to tear down the border like Reagan did when you're president? I would definitely do that. I would advocate for United Korea under not a communist leadership, but a free republic. Hopefully a Christian Presbyterian, Korean Presbyterian republic. That'd be great. All right. Well, if that is all the questions we have tonight, I'm going to go ahead and end the show. You are the first guest, other than the woman that we had on a couple weeks ago, to stay through the entire show, to stay for the entirety of the questions, because Mr. Sharp and Mr. Nicholas both left. So congratulations. Thank you so much. So thank you all so much for watching. We have 42 people watching right now. Make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you guys so much. God bless you all. I will see you all Friday for another episode of the Isaiah LaFone Show. Next week, we will have a Wednesday show, but we will not have a Friday show. My birthday is actually February the 7th, so it was next Saturday, and I've got some fun adventures planned with some of my friends. Some tomfoolery may or may not be committed, so we will not be having a show on Friday. But thank you all so much. Wednesday will be my birthday show, so come on by and wish me happy birthday. I'd appreciate that. So thank you guys so much. God bless you all, and may the peace of Christ go with you.